Now back to that breaking news that we've been tracking for you for the last 3 hours. Shots fired outside Castleton Square Mall, and we now know it started with a fight inside that moved outside. And that's where the gunfire happened. It's been coupled with large, unruly crowds at the site. Our Ebony Monet is there live right now with the very latest. Ebony.
Drew, a lot of people tell us it was a scary time for them tonight here at the Castleton Square Mall. In fact, when we arrived here moments after the incident and here in the parking lot, we saw hundreds of people in their cars just trying to clear out of the parking lot and get away from the mall. We also saw hundreds of unsupervised teenagers, many of them very excited and hyper, and some of them quite unruly. It took police officers about an hour to gain control out here tonight. According to witnesses and police, there was actually a fight that started inside the mall. They tell us that this fight was between 20 to up to 30 young men, and they say that there were hundreds of teenagers that actually started to flock to the fight looking on, and some of these teens actually instigated the fight, and according to authorities, that's when this mob mentality broke out. Authorities, with the help of security, were able to clear the parking lot. In fact, police tell us that there were some off-duty IMPD officers and some off-duty Marion County Sheriff's deputies working as part of the security detail inside of the mall. Once they were able to clear people outside of the mall, they actually tell us that that did not stop the violence. In fact, here's a bit of what police and a witness told us happened.
We were just inside the mall shopping, and then they started fighting by Dix, and they started fighting in the middle section, and then the shots were fired, so everybody got kicked out the mall, and the shots were fired by the movie theater.
It's embarrassing, and it's disappointing. Because there are places for children and teenagers to burn off energy, and I think that this was calculated by some or group of people, and it's unacceptable. It's an embarrassment for their parents, and it's embarrassment for them, and that's what's troubling for me, and I think that's what's troubling for a lot of these officers here. It's just completely unacceptable.
Came into the parking lot, that more fights started to flare up in the parking lot, and that's when they got reports of shots fired. They're actually trying to get to the bottom of that, but at this time they say they have not had anyone report being shot, and they have not had any reports of serious injuries. Police have also not made any arrest. Reporting live outside of the Castleton Square Mall, Ebony Monet, RTV6.
All right, Ebony, thanks for that live report. And joining me in studio right now is Tony Katz, the morning show host from our news gathering partners at WIBC Radio. Tony, you were actually at the mall tonight when this thing all happened. Tell me where you were at the time and what actually you saw and heard.
You know, you go to see a movie. That's all you want to do. You want to see a movie. So Hunger Games was Mockingjay. So it was the 6:20 showing. So the movie was getting ready to wrap up. And for the record, never heard a gunshot, never heard anything like that, but someone had exited the theater. They simply walked out for whatever reason, and then...
In your theater?
In our theater,
okay.
And then walked back in and said, I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of screaming and people are running this way. And when they open the door, now you gotta understand it's Mockingjay, it's this big action-packed kind of movie. The screaming outside in the lobby of the theater overwhelmed the sound in the theater itself. And that's when people said, okay, and they got up and they started walking out. It was a self-evacuation, if you will.
And so you got out as well, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, right.
Myself, the person I was with, we got out very quickly, kept our eye on the door while we were heading towards the emergency exit. We get outside, and that's when people really didn't know what to do. I got to admit, the people in our theater were good people. The evacuation was very, very quick. There was no one there from AMC, but it was very quick. So, outside, though, it was a different story.
So this was a self-imposed evacuation. This was not done by the mall, by police, by the movie theater.
Now, there are some people who say that there was an automated thing that went off, a PA announcement, if you will, that went off that said, hey, this is what you do. Now, I don't know what time that went off, and I think there's going to be some big questions about their procedures in that. But for us, it was, we heard it. This guy said there are people running. We heard the screaming, and we said, let's not try and figure out what's happening. Let's get out. But when we got outside and you started seeing all the police cars, I counted 8 to 10, and trunks were opening up. People were asking, do we stay? Do we go? They weren't sure which way they were supposed to move. Somebody said the police said they should go back into the movie theater. So that's where you get a lot of this crosstalk. Exactly.
A lot of confusion. Okay. Did you feel that you were in danger at any point?
Yeah. You don't know what's happening. You don't know what's going on. It's one of those moments. You hear about it. You remember what happened in Colorado. You're fully aware of all the things that have gone on in America with these kinds of situations, and you say to yourself, "Oh my goodness, am I living in this one?" Not when we were in the theater. When you were outside the theater. It seems that everybody had a really good handle on how you get out. It was what happened next. They were just waiting for the police to tell them something. Me, I wasn't waiting. I moved to my car, and some people were running to their cars.
And so you never felt, I mean, you did feel that you were in danger, but were people panicking at this time? How were people reacting?
At least where I was, because we didn't know where this brawl, this fight was. We weren't sure how that was all coming together. We saw people coming out of the Sears. We saw people coming out of other places. When you're going out of an emergency exit from a movie theater, you're a bit disoriented because it's not your normal place. You don't know where exactly you're at. I would never call it a large sense of panic, but people did not know what to do next. There certainly was no information from the police, and I'm not blaming them in any way. There might have been nothing to give at that moment, but people were like, do we stay? Do we go? Was it a joke? Would someone pull a fire alarm? We didn't know what it was. Some people wanted to see the end of the movie. I say I can buy another ticket. I'm fine with that.
Now, we're seeing a lot on social media tonight where people are posting saying, I'm not going back to that mall ever again. Some people saying it's going to be a long time before I go back there. There have been other cases of violence at Castleton Square Mall. This is not a recurring theme, but we've seen other cases of problems out there. How do you feel as a consumer? You go to the movies tonight, something like this happens. What does it do to you? Do you feel like you're going to go back or not?
I don't have the answer for that yet. You know, sometimes for me it's a little bit still outsider looking in. This is my city, and I absolutely love being a part of this city. But you talk to people who've been here a long time. I spoke on my way down here with Washington Times online columnist Fingers Malloy, who said he used to live in Castleton, and now he wouldn't want his wife being in that mall alone at night. That's a really stunning thing to hear.
It is.
I didn't think anything of going to Castleton. I never thought it would be an issue. And Indy has to start asking itself, if going to Castleton Mall is going to be now a problem for us, it's going to be an issue, going to a movie, is that the city we want? Is that the Indianapolis we want? I know that the answer is no, and now it's going to be how hard are we willing to work to make sure that we can go to a movie theater in peace.
Well, it's interesting. We heard Chris Wilburn from IMPD say this was shameful tonight. So, you know, police had a pretty good handle, I think, on what was going on. More of that will be coming out in the next few days, I'm sure.
Will.
But, Tony, thanks for taking time out of your night to join us tonight and give us your perspective on that.
Good to be here. We'll be discussing it at WIBC Monday morning, 5 a.m.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. We're going to bring in our Call 6 investigator, Rafael Sanchez, right now. He's joining us on the phone. And, Rafael, I know that you talked with several community leaders tonight, including the Reverend Charles Harrison of the 10-Point Coalition. How did that conversation go?
Drew, good evening. Working the phones, you are correct. In the past hour, I spoke to the leader of the 10-Point Coalition, the Reverend Charles Harrison, who, as you know, his group leads efforts to curb violence in the city on a grassroots level. Now, in light of what happened tonight at that Northside Mall in Indianapolis, he'd like to meet with Castleton's owner, indie-based Simon Malls, and offer some recommendations to curb this in the future. One of those recommendations, a parental youth policy that would require kids under the age of 18 to be accompanied by an adult after 6 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays. Harrison says a similar policy is currently observed by the Mall of America in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He says another proposal involves the use of faith-based or community groups to help with its provision of youth in area malls. Simon Malls has in the past allowed for adults to use a so-called mall dads and mall moms to help with patrols at its downtown Indianapolis flagship Circle Center Mall, so that could be possible yet again to be replicated at other area malls. Now, the 10-Point Coalition was aware of the situation at Castleton Square tonight, but police did not call them for any help. That is the latest at 11. Reporting live, Rafael Sanchez, RTV6.
Rafael, thank you for that live report again. And IMPD facing some questions tonight if, in fact, they had indications that the fight was going to happen. They tweeted this earlier tonight. We continue to work with Castleton Square Mall to enhance already existing security plan, and that there were no specific threats of violence reported to the department. Castleton Square Mall is no stranger to violence. Now, back in October, police got called in to break up a fight with several teens. And then back in March of 2013, police say a big group of teens were thrown out of the mall. And that's when officers say the teens went across the street to a McDonald's where dozens of people began to fight. Several teens got arrested, one with a gun. This comes just one day after a massive brawl at a movie theater in the Cleveland, Ohio area. Police say up to 300 teens began fighting in the theater's lobby and spilled into the parking lot. From there, officers say those fights popped up throughout the area. It took police officers from 10 departments to get things under control there.